Today, we're going to take these acrylic blanks from AT Blanks Australia, add some vinyl to create these witchingly good Halloween cupcake toppers. Let's make this! The materials we'll need today are a standard grip mat, as we're using adhesive vinyl. I've got some cupcake toppers. They're the 5cm cupcake toppers from AT Blanks Australia. They're an online company. I've got some silver leaf. I got this from Shein, but I will also link a Spotlight brand in there as well in the description below. So if you're not a Shein person, then you can absolutely grab some of this at Spotlight. Then I've got some Mod Podge, which I got from Spotlight. And then I've just got some scrap adhesive vinyl. Now I'm going to use some gold adhesive vinyl for the text and then some black for the witch's silhouette, and I've decided to use some purple for the cauldrons. So for these cupcake toppers, you can have any image you like at the back of the acrylic topper. I'm going to go with a witch. So there are a number of different Halloween inspired imagery that you can use that's in Design Space, and it's free. So there's actually some really good ones, and you don't have to go through Google Images like I'm going to do. If you wanted to, you could just do all of this in Design Space. It's up to you, and it's up to whatever design you're really looking for your cupcake toppers. But I'm going to go with a witch. Now I'm going to make a witch one for each of my friends. We're all in our 40s, but I think that we're young enough to really pull off a young, cute witch rather than the menacing wart on the nose witch. So I've gone into Google Images and I've typed in witch head silhouette. And I'm going to go through and I'm looking for one. So there are some here that are a little bit blurry. So you can see here that I've got the witch's hat, the witch's head that is quite blurred, so it's not going to clean up very well. This one though, I think is really cute. See, I love the ponytail. I think it's got enough of a young vibe. So once I click on it, it's going to appear on the right hand side. I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to click on open in new tab. Reason I do that is to have a look and see if there are any watermarks, if there's anything in particular that might hinder the upload that we're going to do into Design Space. All I can see there is that there's that watermark that says CLV 2015. I think I can get rid of that quite easily. And so I'm going to right click on it. Now that it's open in that new tab, I go right click and I do save image as, and I just save that image. Then I'm going to go into Design Space. Now I'm in Design Space, I am going to start a new project. And the first thing I'm going to do is upload. So I click on upload in the left corner. And I am going to drag my images that I have downloaded over into the upload image section. So I'm going to start with the witch with a ponytail. So once I've got her in there, I'm going to click continue. Then just with my select button there, I'm just going to get rid of the background. So it's just one click because we've got the whole background. There's nothing inside of this image. And then just to get rid of that text down the bottom, I'm just clicking on the erase tool and just going to erase that. I click on preview single layer just to check and make sure that there's nothing that's going to cause a bit of an issue for us. And then I'm going to just upload that and call it which one. And then I'm just going to do an upload. After I've resized it, and I always tend to resize to about 10, just because it's easier to see on the screen. And now I'm going into shapes. Now I'm just going to do a circle because the top of our cupcake topper is a circle and it's a 5cm circle. The default is 5.08 centimeters, so I could have left it at that. I just wanted to be precise. So then I just need to resize my witch. I want to see, just on the right hand side, you can see I've moved that layer to the top just so I can see it and I can do some resizing. I'm going to change the color of the circle to white just because it's a clear topper anyway. So I just want to be able to kind of get a bit of a grasp on what it's going to sort of look like. So I'm going to keep the witch black. So she's going to be a black silhouette. And then I've got this white circle. Eventually I'm going to delete the circle anyway. So it doesn't matter what color it is. It's just for my own visualization. Then I'm going to go over to the left and I'm going to click on text. So I'm going to put each of our names across this witch. So I really like this across the road. Now, if I zoom in on across the road, you can see how jaggedy it is. See how it's got lots of little gaps in it? The Cricut will cut that out, and that's going to cause a lot of drama, a lot of probably heartache when you're trying to lift it all up. So I'm really looking for a script font, but I want a script font that is going to be quite solid in its shape because it's quite small. So it's only a 5 centimeter or 4.5 centimeter text. So I need to make sure that it's going to be something I can actually weed quite easily. I could do the reverse weed method, but regardless, I don't want it to be too fiddly. Now I'm just changed the text color to a yellow because I'm going to use a gold vinyl. So again, just for visualization really. So I'm just going to scroll through, find a text that I like. Now I'm really loving these thinner fonts and I've landed on Jennifer Lynn. Now I really like this one and I think I'm going to stick with it. The only issue I have is that it might be a little bit too thin. So there's a couple of issues with it being so thin. First of all, bit painful to weed, but we can get around that by doing reverse weeding. The main issue I'm concerned with is that you won't be able to see the text over the top of the silhouette from the background. So what I'm doing here is I am creating an offset. So, but we're going to use this offset a little bit differently. So you can see that I've made my name really big. So I've made Anita quite big. Then I've gone into offset and I've created a 0.1 offset. Now the reason I made it bigger before I did the offset is because I think, just from experimentation, if I did it on the smaller text, the 0.1 works on the size of the text. And if I make it bigger, the 0.1 offset seems to be quite a lot thinner. And then you can see that I've actually got space in that curve of the A in particular. You can see that I've actually got that teardrop shape. Whereas I think if I'd tried to do that offset when my name was smaller inside the circle, it would have actually closed that loop up. So that's why I've decided to make it bigger. If that's not the case, and you know that that's not the case, please let me know, because this is just my brain thinking that when I try and do it at a smaller scale, that 0.1 makes a lot more difference. So now that I've got my offset and my name, I'm actually going to select both of them. So I'm going to select Anita and I'm going to select the offset. Then I'm going to go down to combine and unite. And what I've done by doing that is I've created one text. It's not really a text, it's now an image because we've united it. But that means that I'm not actually cutting this out twice to create the offset. I've created just a fatter font using that Jennifer Lynn font type to start with, that quite thin font. Then I'm going to change it to yellow because I'm going to use a gold vinyl. And then I'm going to repeat that process. Now I'm going to duplicate the circle and the witch. only again for the visuals, because I don't need the circle to be repeated because we're not going to actually cut that circle out. I do need the witch repeated because we need to cut a number of these witches out. But I'm just going to duplicate that so I can have a look. Then once I've duplicated it, I click on the Anita, and then I want to go down to combine and ununite, because now I want to get rid of, I'm going to delete the offset from the Anita. I'm going to change the text to April. Then I'm going to redo that offset of 0.1. Then I'm going to select both. I'm going to do a unite, change it to yellow, and then I move on. So I'm going to do 4 names. I'm going to do Anita, April, Tracy, and Kate. So I'm going to go now that I've done my 4 witches, I'm going to go into images, and I'm not going to go into Google Images. I'm just going to use one of the ones that are in Design Space. So I'm going to click on images. I'm going to type in witch into the search, and then I'm going to change the filter to free. And you can see what I mean. There's a number of different images that are actually quite cool, and I do like them. It's just that I liked the witch I found on Google Images better. But I'm going to use the cauldron because I think that the cauldron matches our witch theme. I've got 4 friends. 6 cupcakes is usually a pretty good number of cupcakes. Usually if you're giving them away, you give 6. Okay, 6 or a dozen. So I'm going to do 6 cupcake toppers. And then inside the cauldron, instead of writing a name, I'm going to do happy for one of the cauldrons and then Halloween as the other cauldron. So I'm going to follow that same process of making the text quite large, doing a 0.1 offset, selecting both, uniting, and then changing them to yellow. So now that I've got my witches done, my names are done, my cauldrons are done, I'm now just going to go through and I'm going to delete all of these circles because we're not going to cut them out. Then I want to click on make. Make sure that we save our project before we go through the make process. So I'm just going to call these witch cupcake toppers or witch cupcakes. And then we're going to just shuffle around our mats because I'm using scrap vinyl because I've got enough vinyl in black and in gold so I can just do it all on one mat. So I've got my happy and my Halloween. I've held my shift key down on the green mat. I've held my shift key down and I've clicked on happy and I've clicked on Halloween. And I have then clicked the 3 dots and I've selected move object and I've chosen mat number 2. Now I'm going to use a metallic vinyl for the text. So that's why I've got all the text on one and then all of the other cuts on the other mat because they do need different pressures. And I'm going to do a metallic vinyl cut on mat number 2 with more pressure. And then for mat number 1, I am just going to do a regular vinyl cut. We don't need to change our tools and we don't need to mirror anything either because this is all vinyl rather than iron-on. So before I weed, I'm just going to cut all of these little components up. I'm not sure if I'm going to need to do some reverse weeding for the text. The witch's silhouette and the cauldron should be fine, but we'll just do a little bit of a test and see if I need to do some reverse weeding for the gold components. It looks like I won't have to because it seems to be lifting really well. So I'm just going to do a regular weed for all of this. Now that everything's weeded, it's really just a matter of putting things together. So all of these cupcake toppers come with a backing on both sides. So first thing you need to do is just remove that. Then even though we've just taken the backing off, I just grabbed some isocol, which is some rubbing alcohol I got from Coles, and I just do still give them a bit of a clean. There might be still some sticky residue left from the backing, and you don't want that to be causing you any grief when you're putting your vinyl down. I also have got myself my little trusty spray bottle that's got a little bit of detergent and water mixed in. And I'm just going to give that a little bit of a spray on top of the cupcake topper. So this is the wet method of application, and it's supposed to prevent bubbling from appearing between your vinyl and your acrylic. Most of the time it does work, and on these smaller projects I've had success. Bigger projects I haven't, but I feel like maybe it's more about the tools I have for applying it rather than using that method. I think the method would work, but I think I need bigger squeegees or something. Anyway, so I've sprayed a little bit of that mixture onto my acrylic, and now I'm placing my witch's head down on top. So with my scraper, I'm just going to scrape, and my finger, I'm just going to scrape out as much of that liquid as I can, so you can see how it's coming out underneath my vinyl. But weirdly, and I don't know the science behind it, but weirdly this still sticks, and it sticks really well, and most of your bubbles will disappear. The reason this is really important, particularly for this project, is because our silhouette is actually going to be on the back side of our project. So if we've got any bubbles, we're going to see them through the acrylic. So using this wet method of application is quite important. So then once I've got it stuck down and got as much of that liquid out as possible, I'm just going to lift my transfer tape. Sometimes the design might come with it a little bit, so you can see that part of the brim of the witch's hat came with it. But just with a little bit of paper towel, if you just do a little bit of a press, the rest of that liquid will come out and it will dry things off, and that will stick down really nicely. It's not going to lift now. It's somehow the glue still attaches. So it's a really cool method of doing this process to try and make sure that things stay down without the bubbles. So I'm just going to repeat that. I'm going to speed this up for you. I'm going to repeat it with all of my witches' heads. Once I've finished doing the witches' heads, the next thing is to add the cauldrons. So I'm just adding those cauldrons in the exact same manner. So now I'm going to follow that same method, and I'm going to add the text. So it's just a matter of making sure that I do the rubbing alcohol again and then using that wet method to apply the text. Hopefully this should all stick down nicely. You do have to be a little bit more careful because it's like the witches' heads and the cauldrons, apart from the bubbles, were all quite solid shapes. But when you're adding this text, because it's a bit loopy and it's got a bit more movement to it, just be a little bit more careful and just work a little bit slower as you're adding the names. I think it's looking good so far. I think this is like the gold text does stand out over the top of the witch's head. You can still see the witch's head. I think I really like it. It's going to be cool. All right, I'm going to continue. All right, so I've muddled this up. The purple actually is white on the back, which is quite annoying, but not impossible to deal with. So instead of placing the name on the other side of the acrylic topper, I'm just going to put it over the top of the cauldron. It's not as good because obviously you've now got little dents, I suppose, where the layering and the overlapping is happening. If I had known that, I probably would have done a little bit of a cutout of the cauldron so that the text wouldn't actually be sitting on top of the cauldron. But unfortunately, that's something that you just have to deal with. If you want to see how to do that, you can go back and have a look at my Get in My Belly canister that I did a while back. It actually goes through that process on how to create a gap in your image so that your text can fit in there nicely. So we've got to the part where Anita's going to try something on camera that she's never done before and see if it works out. So I got this silver leaf from Shein. I just ordered it because I was looking through all the craft stuff and it cost me $3, $3.40. So I thought, what's the harm? It comes with 100 sheets, so I can have 100 goes at this. Whether it works, it doesn't work, it's only $3 that I'm using. Spotlight sell it for $23. So I figure this is probably a better way of testing whether A, I like doing it, whether B, I can do it, or C, is it really worth it? Because I do love looking at other people's stuff where they do the gold leafing on bookmarks and acrylic signs and things like that. So I've always been fascinated by it. So good way to try it out. Anyway, so I've got my Mod Podge and I've done a light coating of the Mod Podge on the back of the acrylic topper. So this is the side where the text isn't. And I'm testing it on one of the cauldrons first because the cauldrons, as we have just seen, the cauldrons are actually on the front of the acrylic topper. So it's kind of like a blank surface. So I thought I'll try it on that first. So what I've done is I've used one paintbrush to apply the Mod Podge. And then I've just started putting down that silver leaf and using a dry paintbrush just to brush it around. Now, you can see as I do that, it lifts, but I think it needs a little bit of pressure just to help it stay down. So I'm going to keep going with that. I think it's going to, I don't know. I don't know if I'm supposed to put it all over the back. But I don't want it to be really patchy because otherwise we're going to end up with like just weird flecks everywhere. So maybe I will need to actually just do a little bit of painting after it. Maybe that's what I should do. Anyway, we'll see how it goes. So while it's still wet, I'm just trying to get rid of some of that silver leaf and it seems to be lifting. So I think the less I play with it while it's wet, the better. But I just want to tidy it up a bit. Oh, look, it looks pretty cool. I don't know. I think it might be a good idea. The more I look at it. It's a bit like glitter though, isn't it? It just goes everywhere. See, now I've got it on the front of the thing. I'm trying to get it off and I can't get it off. It's just moving itself around. But yeah, I think what I'm going to do, so I'm going to speed this up. I'm going to do it with all of them because it does look cool. So I'm just going to speed it up and I'll try not to play with it too much. Anyway, so I'll speed it up and I'll see you back here in a minute. So the last thing we need to do for our cupcake toppers is actually to get rid of that silver leaf and to seal the topper. So you can see here that there's leaf that has moved around. It's kind of like it's a bit like glitter, where it just sticks to everything and it can become a little bit of a pain. So I looked up how to get rid of it, because I tried brushing it off and I tried scraping it off, and it just wasn't really working. But I saw a YouTube clip of a guy who uses a lot of gold leaf, and he uses masking tape. So I'm going to use a combination of masking tape and my lint roller, and it does a pretty good job. And so really all you need to do is just go over it, and it just takes a little bit of patience. You do have to rub that masking tape in, and some of it, I don't know, it depends on how much patience you've got. I've said it before, I can be quite impatient when it comes to this kind of stuff. So I'm not sure whether you're going to be able to get more off than I will, but this seems to do a fairly good go at it, and it gets a lot of those bigger and the smaller little flakes off. And then all I'm going to do is, once I've done that, I'm going to use a bit of Mod Podge to just seal the backs. Now, the reason I want to do that is so that since we're putting these in cupcakes, I don't want them to just start flaking off into the cupcakes. So just to seal it, I'm just going to put a fine layer of the Mod Podge on. I'm going to use a sponge, like one of those sponge brush things, to do that. I think just so that it gives it a little bit of an even layer and it doesn't have the streaking in it. The Mod Podge is there as a sealant. That's how it's marketed. So it should work quite well. So just a really thin layer. So you might put a little bit too much on one, but just use it on all of your other ones as well. So I'm just going to go through that, and I'll just speed it up for you, and then we'll see what it looks like. Oh, I think it's turned out really well. I really like these. So that I can still see some little flakes of silver on there, but if I took a little bit more time, I could probably get some more off. But I really like it. I like the contrast here. Well, I've really enjoyed this project. It's been a great one to end our Halloween series on. The use of the silver flake has been really cool. You saw me actually experimenting in real time here, so I can just show you how easy it is to use. It is a little messy, and I don't know if you bought the more expensive stuff from Spotlight, say mine was from Shein, but if you'd bought the more expensive stuff from Spotlight, is it as messy? Let me know in the comments below. But this is a great idea, not only for Halloween, obviously, but you could use this for birthdays, Christmases, any wedding celebrations, any of those kind of things. So it's a really quick activity, particularly if you don't put the silver leaf behind, because just putting the acrylic on the front and on the back is so easy and so straightforward, but really, really effective. So thank you for joining me in our 5-part Halloween series, and I can't wait to see you next week. Christmas is coming. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget, you can always jump on my Instagram, head over to my Etsy store, or even check out the videos YouTube recommends for you down below. See you next time.